Manny Faces was always one of my favourite He-Man characters when I was a kid, mainly because of his gimmick, but it is because of his gimmick that he had such little representation in the franchise, especially in the 80s. The Mike Young Productions series outlined him a little bit more and showed him a little bit more, but really in the 80s he didn't get much fiction at all. For instance, in the Filmation series he got 2 episodes, and one of them was an origin story that didn't really match up with the origins he'd had before. His origin in the Filmation universe was basically he was just a guy who roamed around, who could change his face and bullied people until He-Man came along and showed him another way, because that's what He-Man did. In the mini-comics, and especially in this annual, which is part of, it's on the front cover, but it's part of the 1985 Masters of the Universe annual. The story in particular, and I will just show you the first page of it, the Tale of Manny Faces. And in the consequent pages it does show you how Manny Faces became to be Manny Faces. And as in the comics, it's dark. The basic premise of Manny Faces' tale is that he is Eternia's greatest actor. He's able to take on the form of anybody that he chooses to play, seemingly, using acting rather than prosthetics and whatnot. He's the greatest actor in Eternia and possibly in the universe. But sadly, he is kidnapped by Skeletor, and he is experimented upon using a cage and apparently wires connected into his skin to create 3 distinct personalities. That of Manny Faces himself, that of a monster who Skeletor and Beastman can control, and of a robot who takes the command of whoever commands him first. So if you're the first to say, Manny Faces, I command you, then you are the guy who basically owns him for the period of time that he is a robot. Now, it's an interesting spin on the werewolf mythos, whereby he transforms into something else other than himself, and is not able to control his actions, yet always knows what he's doing. In the Filmation cartoon, that didn't happen. They simplified that to the point of it making no sense, or even being a thing. He could just transform his face, and whichever face he transformed to, well, if he transformed to the monster, the Beastman could control him. If he transformed to the robot, he was just robotic. Like I say, the Mike Young Productions expanded on that a little bit, but we're not really going to go into that because that's not the character that we're looking at, really. But in every other fiction, Skeletor controlled the monster, and Skeletor would hope to control the robot, but it depends who got there first. Very limiting, doesn't make much sense. I'll tell you why it doesn't make much sense. Because the monster, alright, I understand the monster, and if they kept it at the monster, then that would have been great. But He-Man and Masters of the Universe was always about sword and sorcery and science, so I suppose they felt it incumbent upon themselves to sort out some sort of scientific personality as well, hence the robot. But the robot is the one I have trouble with. Like I said, the monster, yeah, I can totally understand that. But the robot being able to be commanded just by the first person that commands them, that's very arbitrary. That's very open to misuse or things going awry. It happens in the story, in the Tale of Manny Faces. It happens because he transforms into the robot, Tina commands him to stop, and he does. And that's the end of the story, pretty much. So very limiting in terms of fiction. It might have been better had he had either more personalities or Skeletor controlled both. Or if he was the robot, nobody commanded him and he was just a force for destruction, and you could just aim and click, basically, and just say, there you go, boom. He's like a time bomb going off. But that didn't happen. So because of that, like I say, limiting, and that's probably why he wasn't used in much fiction, which is a shame. I think had it been made today, they would have made more of it. They kind of did in Mike Young Productions, and they kind of did in Transformers Animated, because Blitzwing was essentially a very similar character to Manny Faces, and basically his different personalities did clash. They did have a good narrative reasons for being there, and I think with Manny that could have happened as well, but sadly to date that hasn't happened. Might do in the future though, if they ever decide to do He-Man again. I really hope they do in some sort of cartoon form. It would be good. Maybe just do the classics version. Do the version as well, because obviously Mike Young took it in a bit of a different direction but kept it essentially the same. But if we could get a sort of Filmation update, that would be great. That's never going to happen, but it would be great. But anyway, we are here for the toy, because this is Masters of the Universe Classics Man Faces, and here he is. He looks exceedingly like the old version, and like the old version, he does reuse some parts. But he's got a lot of parts that are his own. For instance, as far as I'm aware, the arms are his own. The body, the torso, that is. The head certainly is. The legs, however, they are Trapjaw's legs, if I remember correctly. And they're very, very nice. He's very nicely detailed all over. He looks exceedingly like the old figure, with the blue of his body and his cybernetic parts. Of course, the purple, purpley, puce, magenta bits. And of course he is bare. Everywhere else. I never really understood that. So sort of like Cyborg from the Teen Titans. But yeah, he does a big bare skin. So yeah, very, very, very interesting. He also comes with the orange gun, which he came with in the original version of himself, in the original Master of the Universe line, which is great. I do like it. Never used it in the show or anything. I don't ever remember him using it, but it is a great little thing. It's sort of dark orange as well. It's got like a dark orange wash on it. But it's not just that bright neon orange, which of course I would love anyway. Well, let's have a look at the guy. He has the usual Masters of the Universe Classics articulation. So his arms do go out. They do turn around at the shoulder. They also turn at the bicep. They also bend at the elbow. Not too much though. He has elbow pads which kind of limit him a bit. But there we go. And his hands do go around on their wrist swivel. He also has a waist crunch, although his cybernetic pipes do get in the way of that a bit, so he doesn't go down as much as some of them, but nevertheless, he can do that. He also has the waist swivel, which we've come to know. His legs. He's got the pants he's got, because of the Trapjaw pants, they don't wrap around the whole way. They just stop there, and his crotch piece just sort of hangs. And his legs do go out and swivel at the thigh. They don't swivel on the upper thigh at all, but they do swivel at the boot. And he's got a knee articulation, and his ankles there, they are on the rocker, so they do have a little bit of give there, and of course they move at the ankle. But very, very well articulated. But that's not why we love him, is it? Let's face it. We love him because of this. Because he can turn his face 360 degrees. So he can be the robot, and he can be the monster, and then he can be Manny again. I love it. I love it. I love the fact that his face just swivels like that. And they've done it in a really clever way this time around, because a lot of people were worried that maybe, like battle armour and things like that, he wouldn't be doing the face swivel. He would just, you'd have to take the faces off and put them back on again, or it has happened before. Just a quick note on the faces. They look really like the old Manny Faces faces. They are really cool. The monster looks like that, the one that he transformed into when I was a kid. The robot certainly looks like the one that he transformed into when I was a kid. Really robotic and non-human, and his face. For Manny is essentially the same as the one that I had when I was little as well, which is really, really cool. But there's more. If you take off that bit, which is the top of his head, you can actually take his helmet off and see the mechanism underneath. So there it is. It's literally just on a piece with 3 heads, like that. And because Mattel sometimes do very, very cool things, you can have him as that if you want. They included this little collection of faces, which I will show you when they're on there. It's a reference to something he did in The Mystery of Manny Faces, which was the very first story he was in. And essentially, it's when he starts acting as other people for Rocco's benefit. So he actually does do He-Man. He's got He-Man's face there. He has Orko's face, which is very, very cool. And finally, he does Skeletor's face, which I really, really like. Although it does remind me of Silence in the Library, the Doctor Who episode. It reminds me of that a lot when the Nashtu Barara eat everybody. Well, it's quite scary. But yeah, I think that's a lovely little touch. A really nice little touch by Mattel to do that. Because, you know, sometimes, like I say, people do slag off Mattel. I'm one of them. I do have a go at them sometimes because they kind of deserve it occasionally. But they do come out with cool stuff sometimes. Just to let you know though, whereas sometimes the armour comes off He-Man figures, Master Universe Classics, this one doesn't come off at all. It's stuck on there, which is probably better for Man-E-Faces than anybody else, I think. It doesn't need to come off. Let's pop him back together again for his hole. And then we have, like I say again, Man-E-Faces with his original 3 faces. I can't recommend this guy enough. The gimmick is brilliant. The gimmick is brilliant, even though throughout his whole toy life, the gimmick has rendered him incapable for literature and for fiction and for cartoons. The gimmick is still cool, and I think at one point, if they do decide to explore it a little bit more, then that's going to be a great thing. But even then, I liked the gimmick, I liked the idea. I mean, as a kid, it kind of haunted me that there was this guy who was just experimented on by Skeletor and effectively made Frankenstein's monster. And you can sort of see that influence in there. There is a sort of experimented upon look about him, you know. He does look odd, you know. He doesn't look like any other Masters of the Universe figure. And that's a good thing, I think. But yeah, it used to horrify and scare me as a child. It used to haunt me, the fact that he was experimented upon. It still kind of does. It's still very weird. He's a weird character, and I don't know how to take him. But I love him at the same time, and I love the figure. I'm so chuffed to have it. So thanks very much to Private Spoon for selling him to me. I can't thank you enough for that, my friend. I shall be back next week with, I think, possibly a G.I. Joe review. It's been a while. It's been a year nearly since I've done a G.I. Joe review. But I will be back next week with one. And like I said, not entirely sure what I'm going to do yet. Might be a vehicle. Might be the His Tank. So keep an eye out for that. Until next week though, take care of yourselves and each other. And a big shout out to Juwaria, who sadly passed away the other day. It won't be the same on the internet without him around, I can tell you. But like I say, definitely take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next week. Bye bye for now.